Alright guys, last tutorial for the night, and we are going to talk about how to write introductions, which is sometimes one of the most difficult things to do in writing. So what I want you to do is to go to Google Classroom, and you're going to scroll down to Announcement and Introduction. And for your starter, I just had you log in and go to Google Classroom and then click on this. And it pops up just like a quick informational handout on how to write an introduction. So for 5 minutes, I just had you read through it, and obviously the underlined parts are really important, so you can read that on your own. But it basically just walks through what you need to include and what you should be looking at your introduction as. So this says, if anything, if you're in the introduction, you're attempting to inform the reader about the rationale behind the work, justifying why your work is an essential component of research in the field. It gives, down here it says, the introduction gives an overall review of the paper, but does address a few slightly different issues from the abstract, which we'll talk about later. It works upon the principle of introducing the topic of the paper and setting into a broad context. So we start broad in the beginning and then gradually narrowing down to a research problem or thesis in our case, and hypothesis. A good introduction explains how you mean to solve the research problem and creates leads to make the reader want to delve further into your work. I liked this whole idea, so before I get to background, the way that I think about a thesis an introduction is like a funnel. So it's like when you're funneling something from like a big jug of water into like a bottle of water, you have to use a funnel, and it starts very wide and broad, and you get gradually you get more specific into your thesis. So start broad and get everybody kind of hooked into what you're talking about, and then slowly get more specific, which ultimately leads to your thesis. The way that I look at introductions also, like when I'm starting, I want you guys to kind of assume your role, like if you had to teach a class on your topic and you had to get, and I said this earlier today to my 5th period, if you had to get cynical, apathetic teenagers interested into what you were going to teach about, which is your topic, your paper, how are you going to start to get them invested in it? And I do this a lot with you guys as a teacher. Like last quarter, we talked about, should summer break be eliminated? And you guys freaked out and were like, heck no, we love summer break. But it got you intrigued into the topic of school and education reform in terms of the school calendar. Or I posed the question, should gender dictate what class you're in? Like, should girls be in one class or should guys be in one class? And some of you were like, no, that's horrible. Then you read about it. And so it's like, you can start with a question, you can start with a quote, but nonetheless, you start with maybe a statement that pulls everybody in, where they don't have to have a ton of knowledge on your background topic, but they have just enough through your gradual statement, your overall statement, that they can sort of somewhat relate to what it is you're going to tackle in your paper. So that's why I think of it as a funnel. Try to get as much, as broad as you can in the beginning, and then get specific. I also like that when we talk about thesis statements and background, they keep utilizing this idea of like a movie trailer. And it says, like, in any good Hollywood movie, the first task of the introduction is to set the scene. So I guess this isn't the trailer, but it's talking about setting the scene in an intro. But I also look at it as like a movie trailer. Like, it gives a hint as to what you are going to write about. And within the first 30 seconds of reading a paper, usually a reader can determine whether or not they want to read your paper just on how you appeal to them through your connection of the topic, through the way that you paint the picture of your topic, through the way that you set up your thesis. So that's just kind of the background. The importance, this leads to the rationale behind the research, and then some tips. Keep it short, define the problem, and organize your paper. And then here's just an example below that you can read about. So begin with the general point. Here's the broad. Give an overview of the key issues. Indicate the direction that you're going to take. Use the words of your essay title to show your understanding of the question. That's not always needed, but sometimes that's nice. and then make a link to the first part of your essay, which is going to be your thesis statement here. So it kind of follows a formula. And what I had you do after you read this as your starter, I just had you open up a Word document and just write like 2 to 3 things, pieces of advice that you took away with you as you decided to write. The other thing was I pulled up just this simple template. It's not really a template, it's almost just like criteria that you need to write with. And so really a basic intro includes these things. A hook or a general statement right here. So for example, if I were writing about homelessness in teens, I might say something along the lines that's broad, like the homeless population of teenagers in our current society is increasing every single day. So that's broad, that's general. It kind of makes you interested, like, really, is it? And then I might, from that point, for my broad statement, my general statement, I'm going to get specific and use a statistic to back that up. More specifically, 47% of teens are considered to be homeless, which I'm making up these statistics. I don't know if that's true. But nonetheless, broad statement. So the homeless population of teenagers currently is increasing to an all-time high. More specifically, more than 47% of teenagers are considered to be homeless. What does homeless mean? Homeless could mean blah, 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 whatever that is. Then I'm going to go to the importance. Why should anybody care about this topic? This is significant because not only does this deal with the youth of America, but this filters into our academic and educational settings, which also trickles down to our overall developing or lack thereof of a development of an economy. So the importance of the topic. Why is it important? And then if I can, some topics can't go to this portion for solutions, but as a nation, we must consider possible solutions in order to combat this problem. And then I get into my thesis because that usually comes last. And without question, it should be asserted that homelessness is the result of blah, 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 whatever my points are. So if you follow this and you write a sentence for each, there's your thesis. If you write your intro. If you write 2 sentences for each, that's a pretty awesome introduction. Maybe if you take this one out, you spend more time on the hook or the getting specific. It's really up to you. But nonetheless, you're following the structure and adapting it to what you need. And so really it becomes hook or general statement. Homelessness is increasing in teens. More specifically, 47 or whatever I said % of teenagers are considered to be homeless. This is significant because possible solutions to this problem, to combat this problem, get up here, this problem include ... which leads to my thesis, which I think I said this, that for like almost every thesis statement that I ever used, I started with without question. Without question, homeless teens, blah, 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 blah. And there becomes my introduction. Okay, the only other thing that I want to assert about intros are stay away from first and second person point of view. So first person point of view is I, me, my. Second person point of view is you. So we want to look at it generally as an objective third person point of view introduction. So third person point of view is the only second person that you can use is we. Okay? You is not good, I is not good, that's first, but we is the only second person point of view you can use. And then third person pronouns would be like individuals, society as a whole, or society. What else? Individuals, society, he, she. You can look up third person pronouns, nationally, that kind of thing. But just keep it third person objective. So that way you can appeal to the majority of readers, not just like me, myself, and I, or you, the reader. So it's not as accusatory, okay? So that's the only thing that I did for introductions, and then I gave you guys time to write in class, and I had people share out their hook or general statement, and sometimes it took 50 attempts to get your hook or general statement just the way that you wanted, and then maybe it took you 25 attempts to get specific, or look through your summaries to find a statistic that was noteworthy that would pull readers in. But nonetheless, like, intro writing is sometimes very difficult, but if you start here and you work and you're really working hard to get that introduction intact, the rest of your essay kind of comes in easy. There's also the other side of it where some people don't like to do their intros at the beginning and they come back to them at the end. That's fine, but you need to turn in something to me that shows me that you have some type of an idea as to where you're headed, and your intro is the basis for that. So once again, if you have any questions, let me know. But as long as you follow this specific formula for now, it's going to give you something to work with. And the other thing that this article really talked about here was the organization. And I wanted to just end with this. As you write the paper, you may find that it goes in a slightly different direction than planned. In this case, go with the flow, but make sure that you adjust the introduction accordingly. Same thing with your thesis. Some people work entirely from an outline and then write the introduction as the last part of this process. This is fine if it works for you, but I would appreciate if you start somewhere and then you go back and adapt as you write. Okay, so that's kind of the mini lesson for intro. If you have questions, please come see me, but get this done as soon as possible, as your paper the first part of your paper is due this week. All right, that's it for now. Talk to you guys soon.